Oh, hello. Happy Monday. Happy Monday, Maggie. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you doing?
I've got red eye brain. I'll apologize in advance to anybody watching this show. I just arrived on the East Coast this morning and I haven't slept at all, but I'm excited to talk about movies. How was your weekend, more importantly, because you were celebrating?
Yes, my birthday was yesterday, so I had a nice little trip into the city to see one of my favorite performers, and that was great. Always a good time.
Who's your favorite performer?
Ramin Karimloo. He is from Toronto. He's a Toronto-based. Well, I guess he's like everywhere now, but has been on Broadway, West End, all sorts of stuff. He's fantastic. I've been following his career for like 15 years at this point, and I actually got to interview him on Collider 2 years ago for Funny Girl on Broadway.
Hey, nice, nice. I'm gearing up for a little Broadway time myself this week. I feel like I got the itch after my last Broadway play, and now I got to go again. So I'm going to go see Enemy of the People this week, and I'm very excited.
I've never seen wonderful things.
I've never seen a show done with that kind of setup before, so I'm excited to, be in the midst of it and experience it myself.
It looks really good. I've seen so many like rave reviews from that one.
I mean, you don't get a better cast than that too. So I feel like I'm going to be in good shape when I go to that. So we have a 2-topic day today. And I believe my notes are backwards, but I ordered it this way. Did I say Life of Chuck first or box office first? I said Life of Chuck first. So I love how I didn't even pull up the Collider article with the quotes. I just wrote down all of my thoughts about Life of Chuck, which I didn't need to remind myself of. But part of the reason why we're talking about Life of Chuck today, or I should clarify, the Mike Flanagan adaptation of the Stephen King novella Life of Chuck, is because the other night we did a Collider screening series event for the movie Sleeping Dogs, which comes out on March 22nd. And it included a Q&A with the director, Adam Cooper, and also one of the film's stars, Karen Gillan, who, of course, is in Life of Chuck and has worked with Mike Flanagan in the past on Oculus. And I was trying to be good, Maggie. I was trying to stay focused on the movie and not veer away from the main topic of the event. But when someone's in a Mike Flanagan film or show, I feel like it's just not in me. I can't hold back. I'm too weak. I have to ask about it. So I did. And some of the quotes are about her reuniting with Mike, because one of my personal favorite things about Mike Flanagan and what he's doing in this industry is the fact that he stays with a lot of the same collaborators, but also builds this Flana family that he's been making for years. And I just thought it was really interesting that she worked with him way back on Oculus and how much that family has evolved since Life of Chuck. So when I asked that, she said, you know what? It didn't feel that different. I was going into it like, okay, how has he changed? He's done so many movies. It felt the same. We were back in Alabama like we'd never left. If there was any difference, I suppose he just felt more, I mean, he was relaxed on the first one, but maybe he wasn't. He was just pretending to be relaxed. But no, he was just the same Mike Flanagan and brilliant. And the movie is absolutely incredible. Here's the little interesting bit now. I saw a not finished version of it and literally didn't stop crying for days in a good way. A good tease right there.
That's a great tease.
Have you ever read Life of Chuck?
I have, yeah.
I thought you might have. What did you think of it?
I thought it was excellent. I'm very excited for this adaptation of it. I, like yourself, am a big fan of what Mike Flanagan's been doing. And I think this cast is also incredible. Like, this has such an all-star cast.
Yeah, you don't really get better than this roster here. Of course, we have Karen Gillan, Tom Hiddleston, Mark Hamill, Rahul Kohli, Kate Siegel, Harvey Guillén, Samantha Sloyan, Chiwetel Ejiofor, Jacob Tremblay, and there's more. I'm just reading on I'm reading on the Collider.com article, the folks that were listed there. Matthew Lillard, yes. I think he's further up in the piece, and I'm towards the bottom right now. I'm very excited to see him in a Mike Flanagan project, but I think that Mike Flanagan's work has often been branded as horror, and it is horror. And I think this speaks to some of the issue I take with how we we take the genre horror and we box it into like a very small and specific thing when it can be so much more than that. And I do think Flanagan in particular is someone who crafts stories that exist within the box, but outside at the same time. So I think a lot of folks might be a little surprised in terms of how, I guess I have to say how dramatic of Chuck will likely lean. Obviously, I don't know anything about the film that he crafted. For all I know, it's going to be hardcore horror. But given Karen Gillan's comments about the cut she saw, I don't think that's going to be the case. But it's like it's a really beautiful and soulful story, and there are supernatural qualities to it. There is darkness and sadness to it, but it also leans incredibly hopeful and inspiring. And I mean, personally, it is one of my favorite of Stephen King's short stories, and it's probably the one that stuck with me most. I'm trying not to go too far into spoiler territory in case you haven't read it, and if you hadn't, it's in the If It Bleeds book, so do go check it out. But it's told in reverse chronological order, which is a big reason for me, at least, why the story is so powerful. But it really hammers home the idea that we just need to appreciate the little things in life, the little moments that we might take for granted. I'm going to stop myself from saying exactly what I was about to say, but the whole idea of, like, thank you for 39 years of service means something very specific to the people around Charles Krantz, Chuck, and also to Chuck himself. And I feel like, nowadays, or really any day, it's always a valuable reminder to appreciate every step in this life, no matter how long, no matter how short, no matter what that step is, even if it seems trivial. It's all important. And I feel like I need that reminder often. And that's what reading and rereading Life of Chuck gives to me.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see how it's handled, because I think what I've loved about Flanagan's, like all of the stuff that he did with Netflix, is it's so much more like of a cerebral style of horror. It gets more into the horror of being human. And I think that kind of fits really nicely into what Life of Chuck could be on screen. And that's why I'm so excited for this one.
Yeah.
So I always think back, like Haunting of Hill House, Bly Manor, none of those are like slasher horror. They're like sobering horror. They're the kind of things that haunt you afterwards. And I think this has that same tonal quality to it.
Almost everything he's made has that quality. I mean, even when you want to look at something like Dr. Sleep, like, yes, The Shining is known as classic horror, but there are some ideas that have like far more weight to it in that story beyond, jump scares or more or what we might call a more traditional horror scare, if that makes
sense. People
are
more terrifying than almost any masked, slasher killer.
Like, human truths are often, and like that's exactly what Life of Chuck is exploring, like deep, unavoidable human truths that we have to face head on in order to forge forward in a positive and fulfilling manner. And
exactly.
Damn, that is exactly what this movie will likely be about if it sticks with the short. And it seems like that is the plan too. Karen didn't flat out confirm this, but I did ask if it stuck with the structure of the story and the source material, and she was like hesitant to say it, but I forget her exact word now, and I don't want to misquote, but basically she didn't confirm it. But ultimately, I would be absolutely shocked if they changed that in the final film. But this is very exciting. I can't wait for this to get a date, so I have something specific to mark off on the calendar. With that, we will move on to our second topic, which is the weekend box office. Not so bad weekend at the box office. Number one went to Kung Fu Panda 4 with $30 million. Dune Part 2 was at number 2 with $29.1 million. Then it was newcomer Arthur the King with $7.5 million at number 3. Imaginary came in at number 4 with $5.6 million. Then it's Cabrini at number 5 with $2.8 million. And then I included a 6 because Love Lies Bleeding went wide, and it made $2.5 million and took the number 6 spot at the box office. So I'll toss it to you first, Maggie. What on this list catches your eye?
I'm really happy for Kung Fu Panda being up top. I think I mean, I'm always happy when I see animated movies like finding their audience and succeeding at the box office, because I do feel like there's so many like preconceived notions about animation, and people have like, I've seen people like hoping for them not to do well. And it is nice to see something that has been here for so long. Like, this is like, what, 15 years worth of Kung Fu Panda movies coming out. Like, it's great to see that kind of taking Dune's slot for, its opening.
Yeah, it's doing quite well too, which I was pretty impressed by. I am not the biggest Box Office Mojo fan anymore, but I've always loved Box Office Pro, and I think they have some great insight. And in particular, one of the things I appreciated in their weekend write-up is that they gave a handy little chart to compare how Kung Fu Panda 4 is doing to its predecessors, and it's pretty much in line. A 48% drop in weekend 2 of release after a big opening, like that's a rock solid sign right there. And that drop is pretty much in line with the previous 3 films. So I have a feeling Kung Fu Panda 4 is going to be in pretty good shape for a little while. And, I'm still happy to see Dune Part 2 doing quite well. And it's just going to keep crossing box office milestones. At this point, it's got over 200 million at the domestic box office. And then on top of that, I think today it's likely going to cross 500 million globally. And that's a big deal. That's a big deal for complex sci-fi storytelling with an auteur filmmaker behind it. And, this is kind of the moment that I've been waiting for Denis Villeneuve. Not that he hasn't had other successes before, but I want to see studios have the confidence to give someone as talented as him, to give such like a singular visionary like him enough money to make a big blockbuster and then see it do well. So that keeps happening. And the fact that it's doing so well right now gives me a whole lot of faith that is the path that we're heading down.
And it's also a huge win for Timothée Chalamet for him to have 2 huge blockbuster films. I mean, Wonka absolutely blew its numbers out of the water, and then to follow that up with Dune 2, I think he's definitely solidifying himself as a face of film, which I think at this early in his career is fantastic.
I think it's great for him. I love seeing talented artists have box office numbers match their skill set. That's always very exciting. Have you seen Arthur the King?
I have not. Like, it looks good. Any film that has a dog that's like a key part of it, I'm signed up for. But this definitely felt like one that I'll probably end up watching when it's on video at home. But it looks good. It looks fun.
I like dogs. I feel like the only reason this movie was on my radar in the least is because I work in this space. I haven't like casually seen a single ad for this movie.
Nope.
Perhaps I'm not the target. I don't know.
But I don't want to say, I usually hate the phrase of like dad television or dad movies, but this definitely feels like a movie that is probably been marketed towards that demographic. And that might be why like we haven't seen it, but I don't know.
I haven't seen anything. 7.5 million is not the strongest opening. I believe it had a $19 million production budget though. So it's not that high of a hill to climb, but a $2,497 per theater average at over 3,000 theaters is just not great. And I have a feeling part of the reason why Arthur the King didn't do super well on its opening is because Kung Fu Panda 4 is still going strong. And I have to imagine it's family friendly fare. So the two are going to clash a bit. I was impressed to see Imaginary drop only 43.5%. And, it's not like it opened with a ton of money at the box office. What would the math be on that? Like close to $10 million, I guess.
I think that's where it's at. Yeah.
It's a slightly bigger Blumhouse movie cost wise. That was one thing Jason Blum mentioned to me in our conversation, which I find interesting. That Blumhouse, in an effort to be competitive with other movies in the theater, not necessarily streaming, they're upping their budgets. We're used to seeing Blumhouse films made on a single digit budget, like as small as like $1 million back in the
Yeah.
day, and now they're looking more at like the 10 to $15 million range, and I believe Imaginary falls in that range. So it's more to make back, but right now already it's got 21 million worldwide, so it's on its way.
Yeah, I feel like the marketing for this one wasn't as catchy as like the marketing for Megan. I feel like Megan had such a fantastic, almost, and Smile had a similar kind of that more strategic, made to feel grassroots campaign, where I feel as Imaginary kind of was at a disadvantage because the whole bear thing they tried on TikTok and it didn't really seem to take off. Was it Chauncey the bear? Didn't seem to take off the way that Megan and other previous marketing campaigns have taken off. And then you also have this issue where it's that it's a phenomenon that happens occasionally where you have If also coming out. You have two movies about imaginary friends, and I think that also blurred the lines because you have two different studios marketing imaginary friends and very different styles of movies. Yeah. And I think that hit a wall for it.
Did seem like Chauncey didn't quite catch on like Megan and others, but I don't know.
They tried.
Chauncey's kind of cool. I'm not going to say I loved the movie, but I thought it was a solid watch. I enjoyed it. I like the concept, and I think the concept does have franchise potential. I don't necessarily know if these numbers are gonna justify that, but there are other stories.
I mean, it might end up with a second life once it goes to digital, like most things seem to be getting these days.
That is definitely a possibility here. And then there's the other one that's worth talking about is Love Lies Bleeding. It had a really great initial opening. I believe it was in 5 theaters. The expansion wasn't really as strong as I think many had hoped. It's under $2,000 for a per theater average at 1,300 theaters. It was not great, but also not terrible. So hopefully word of mouth helps that one, because it's like it's a wild movie. It is a highly unique movie that maybe doesn't feel like a guaranteed crowd pleaser to me, where everyone walks out loving it. So I was a little nervous about that and it not having that wholly positive buzz and word of mouth. But every reaction that I've seen, at least in my little bubble, my little circle, folks seem to love it. So I'm hoping that winds up giving it a boost and giving it some legs going forward.
Yeah, that's what I'm hoping for that one as well.
We shall see. And just
Fingers
because someone asked, Steve wants to know, Ghostbusters opens this weekend. Do you know what the projections are going to be? So if I take a look at Box Office Pro right now, they've got a 3-day opening range of 31 to 43 million. Personally, I'll take the lower end of that range. This is another one where, even though it's a really hot property, Ghostbusters is a very famous franchise name, I have not seen enough advertising for it, and I fear that Ghostbusters enthusiasm is waning. So unless the reviews come out and they are overwhelmingly positive, I do fear that this movie is going to underperform.
Yeah, I loved Afterlife. I saw that at New York Comic Con when they did that surprise screening back in.
I was there as well.
Yes. And I loved it. I had a great time with it. I love the Ghostbusters franchise, but I have to say, I think that a March release for Ghostbusters is odd, because I associate Ghostbusters with like the fall and like Halloween time. So I do wonder if that will be something in retrospect they look at, like, maybe we should push it to like the seasonal time when you're thinking about ghosts and scary things. I am really excited for this one because I'm a big fan of Slimer, and as soon as I found out Slimer's back, I was like, sign me up. I'm ready to see this. But yeah, I am also on the erring on the side of caution, where I'm thinking like 25 to 31 million is maybe where opening will be.
Ooh, that's real low.
Yeah, I wouldn't, because again, people aren't programmed to think of this franchise in like the springtime. It's just not a spring franchise. I can see end of summer maybe, but it's such a fall feeling.
I guess so. I can see that read on it. I also don't know if they've done as good of a job as they need to in terms of appeasing longtime fans and creating a new generation of Ghostbusters lovers as well. Just for comparison here, when Ghostbusters Afterlife opened in November of 2022, it
Mhm.
made $44 million opening weekend. So I think that would probably back up my current predictions that
Mhm.
I'm like going low 30s for its opening weekend.
Yeah. I mean, McKenna Grace has been really pushing it on TikTok, so maybe she'll be able to bring in the numbers
She's
for him.
great
I
too.
love
I
her so
want good
much.
things for her. I think she is just like up to her eyeballs in talent, one of the absolute best of her generation. There's no doubt in
Absolutely.
my mind there's going to be a time in the future, like maybe not even in the far future, in the near future, when we're talking about her being in the awards circuit too, because oh, she's so I can't believe how talented she is.
Insanely talented.
While we're on the topic of upcoming predictions, the next big one after Ghostbusters is another very familiar franchise that's coming back for another installment. It's the new Godzilla Kong movie, the new Empire, and I fear it's going to be in a similar situation. It's just been too long. The noise for the movie isn't as loud as it needs to be. I do think that one's going to outperform Ghostbusters, but I don't
Mhm.
think it's going to be by much. Like, I see this one maybe being in the mid 40s.
Yeah, I could see that. I think if it benefits at all from the craze that was Godzilla minus one, we might see that giving it a little bit of a boost. But at the same time, it's such a tonally different franchise to what Godzilla minus one is that may be also a hindrance for
I
it.
was gonna say, I was surprised you went for the helping first because I look at that and I'm like, "Oh, like, people are either going to just, like, pass on another one because they got such a great one,
Hmm.
or and I haven't seen the movie, I have no clue what the quality of the film is, but, like, Godzilla Minus One has upped the bar for Godzilla movies
Hmm.
considerably, and that just makes it harder, I think, for the new Godzilla to
Yeah.
shine no matter the quality of it, because it's not gonna hit that level.
Exactly. What I could see is with like the name recognition of like, oh yeah, that Godzilla movie we really liked a couple months ago. Oh, there's a new Godzilla movie. Gets people in it opening weekend, but not word of mouth because then they go, oh, very
Maybe,
different.
maybe. As far as upcoming box office performances go, the one that I'm rooting for most, probably obvious at this point, is I wanna see Civil War make all the money. All the money. I thought that movie was phenomenal.
And that's going to be
Phenomenal.
a fun divisive one, which I think will help make it make a lot of money because people will want to have an opinion when they go to the water cooler.
I think that there are elements of this movie that are going to be divisive. It's not going to be the type of conversation that I think the trailer has conditioned us to expect.
Hmm.
I do think that the story the trailer sold is very different than what the actual movie is, and I highly, highly, highly prefer what the actual movie is, and I think what Alex Garland is really doing,
Hmm.
he's doing with great thought, great purpose, and executing those ideas just, like, above and beyond anything I could have expected. So, Civil War, I think, is one to look out for and one that I am hardcore rooting for right now.
Exciting. I mean, we have so many good movies coming up. It's crazy.
Yeah. Monkey Man, The First Omen. I'm excited for The First Omen. Um, that's all my brain can recall right
I
now.
was gonna say Immaculate comes out soon, right? That's
Immaculate
this
is on the
weekend.
22nd.
Yeah.
Immaculate's on the 22nd. I wonder how that one's gonna do. I
I'm
wanna
worried
see.
for that one because I haven't seen the marketing for it, but also Sydney Sweeney is such a household name now that I
Yeah.
think that could also help benefit it a lot.
Oh, without a doubt. And she's hardcore promoting it right now. And I
Yeah.
think hardcore promoting it not just as like a movie star who headlines the film, but she's a producer on it. And I think all of her promotion is coming across as it being a passion project for her, which I think will only boost its chances at the box office. Also, because there's no embargo on that one, I can highly recommend it. I thought it was great. I thought it was a really great. I'm always hesitant to say slow burn because I know that turns people off, but I do think that that movie has a very, very effective build and like a holy shit third act that it very, very well earns. And it's got this like really like classic, elegant feel to it that does remind me of, some of the classics from well, like late 60s, 70s, early 80s. it very much worked for me.
Excellent. Okay.
And now I feel bad for having left Abigail.
I know.
But
I'm so excited for Abigail. That's
I
like
stopped at the 12th. I stopped at the 12th of April. I'm very much looking forward to Abigail.
That's a horror movie I'm extremely excited for this year.
I don't blame you. I don't blame you. And radio silence, I trust. With that, we will wind this episode of Collider Dailies down. Maggie, tell everybody something you worked on that you want them to check out.
I had my interviews for Farscape drop yesterday, which I was really excited for. Huge fan of that. Tomorrow is its 25th anniversary, so definitely check that out if you're a fan of that. And if you haven't watched it before, you can marathon it on Shout TV. They're doing a whole marathon tomorrow for the anniversary, so you can get on board for Farscape. It was a great show. And then my interview with Ed Speleers dropped on Friday for Irish Wish, but we also talked quite a bit about Star Trek Picard, which I know everybody cares about. So
just a little bit. Just a little bit. I will promote South by Southwest interviews. We have many, many, many more to upload. I think the ones that I've done that are up and running include Hacks. Maggie, my brain melted sitting at that table with Gene Smart. It was just like absolutely losing it.
That table.
That whole table is just filled with incredible people who I truly believe are making one of the best shows on air right now. So it was Hacks. I posted Azrael, which is the one that stars Samara Weaving. And she is just an untouchable horror action star. No one can do what she does in that movie. Like, that does feel like a very singular performance to me. So I know there's many talented actors out there. She's in a class of her own in my book. And then the very first one I posted was I Don't Understand You with Nick Kroll and Andrew Rannells. And they were lovely. I love that movie's combo of horror and comedy. So all of those are on Collider.com and also up and running on the Collider Interviews YouTube channel. So check those out and keep an eye out for more. With that, that's a wrap on today's Collider Dailies. Tomorrow at 10 a.m. Pacific, it will be John and a special guest. You'll have to tune in to find out. So see you then.